Can we bring to order, please? Ready? Okay, thank you. A warm welcome to those attending and on our viewers watching live on the Council YouTube, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Higgins, and I'm the chairman of this meeting. Details of business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, and copies which are accessible under the live broadcast with, if you make the click, you can get to the addendums as well. For those present in the room and intending to speak, please note that you are filmed and any statement you make and recorded is made public, and a reminder to anybody speaking today that your voice will only be audible online when the microphone is switched on. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if one does go off, please follow officers out of the room. For mobile devices, can you please either put them on silent or switch them off, and tablet devices as well. Some of the committees we're trying to go paperless. Some of us are there and some of us are not, but we're all trying to get there. So we have got computers, and I can assure you that no one here is playing Candy Crush. First of all, you'll notice that we are all sort of digitaled up. We've got two lovely big screens that will show the applications, and there's two smaller screens for the audience in the room. Attendees tonight are Councillor Wallana, welcome. Councillor Burrows, welcome. Councillor Chandel, welcome. Councillor Sansapuri, welcome. Councillor Mand, welcome. And Councillor Singh, welcome. That's the members. Now for officers we have Ros Johnson, Head of Development Management and Building Control. Kate Crosby, Area Planning Service Manager. Owen Concannon, got it this time. Chris Brady, our Planning Team Leader. And Alan Corcoran, I think that's right as well. So I've done two of you both. Very confusing on the night. Dr. Alan Tilley, who does our Highway Transport Planning Development and Team Manager, and Salah Joby, our Legal Advisor. Welcome, it's your first meeting with us, and welcome very much. And Ryan Adele, our Democratic Services, who make sure that I follow the procedures correctly. First of all, we go to the Chairman's announcements, which is apologies for absence. Ryan.
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Bennett and we have Councillor Wallana substituting, and we have apologies from Councillor Garelick with Councillor Sansapuri substituting.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for turning up and substituting. Declarations of interest in matters coming before this meeting. Is there any? No? Well done. Minutes of the AGM, do we agree on those? That's a selection of... Yeah, right. Great. That's great, that's agreed. Matters that have been notified in advance or urgent, there is none. And to confirm that all business is in part 1, so there will be nothing in part 2. So we go off to the first...
Just take minutes of the previous committee.
Oh, sorry, okay, yes, and also minutes of the previous committee, we agree on those? Agreed? Okay, fine. Doesn't say that, does it? There you go. Okay, so we go to the first item, which is item 7, the Orchard Inn, Ruislip. Alan, over to you, mate.
Good evening. The application site is the Orchard Inn on Ickenham Road in Ruislip. The application is for the construction of a discount food store with car parking, landscaping and other associated works following the demolition of the existing locally listed building. Officer's recommendation is to refuse the application. Appendix 1 of the committee report detailed 8 refusal reasons. That has since been revised down to 7 refusal reasons as the applicant submitted additional flood and drainage details. The removal of this refusal reason is recorded within the addendum sheet, which has been circulated this week alongside 2 other points for your attention. There's been significant public interest, briefly summarised on this slide here. We have received a petition objecting to the proposal, which included 1,751 signatories. We received 669 individual objections, including from residents' associations, a conservation panel, Councillor Cawthorne and Councillor Smallwood. 35 representations have been received which support the proposal, which is why it's been presented this evening, and 1 neutral comment was received. Here's the location plan showing the site to the north of Five Ways roundabout. Regarding planning constraints, the site and surrounds are within the Ruislip Village Conservation Area. the shaded area on the screen in yellow. The site contains the locally listed orchard building, and the front garden at the south of the site contains the locally listed war memorial honouring Polish airmen. There are also some locally listed and Grade 2 listed buildings within the conservation area which are shaded red on the screen. Here's the existing site plan with the garden to the south, existing building towards the west and car park to the north and east. This is the locally listed orchard building, a photo of it there, which Lidl proposes to demolish. This is the locally listed Spitfire War Memorial that I had referenced, located to the front of the orchard building. The applicant proposes to retain this, though it would be relocated and the garden which it sits in would be reduced in size with additional hard standing proposed. There's a Premier Inn operating in the extension to the rear of the orchard building. This would also be demolished as part of the proposed development. Briefly, for some context, this is the Grade 2 listed White Bear pub located opposite the application site on the Five Ways roundabout, and some images here to give a sense of the character of this conservation area. The next couple of slides are of the existing elevations and the floor plans, if we need to refer to them later. And this is the proposed site plan showing the 1,825 square metre Lidl store that would replace the locally listed pub and the attached Premier Inn hotel. You can see the locally listed Spitfire War Memorial retained to the front of the site. Here's the proposed ground floor plan, proposed roof plan with PV panels. This is the proposed east elevation that would face the car park. It would mostly be painted render, while there would be some vertical brick bands and the roof would be tiled. This is the proposed west elevation that would adjoin Sharps Lane, the proposed south elevation that would face the Five Ways roundabout, and the proposed north elevation which would be the delivery and warehouse end of the store. To conclude, it is recommended that the application be refused for the following 7 reasons: design and heritage impacts, retail impacts, loss of the public house, highways, biodiversity, air quality and planning obligations. Again, these are fully detailed in Appendix 1 of the committee report, and that's all from me for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Well done. We have a petitioner, Councillor Small. Would you like to come to the table? I hope Democratic Services made it quite clear that because the recommendations have been agreed in the sense of speaking rights do not apply, so it's been refused. So that's the reason you only get 3 minutes.
Democratic Services did not make me aware of that.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I'll read out the actual wording so that but it says you got 3 minutes anyway, so
it's going to make me struggle a bit because I wrote a 5-minute speech.
Well, I'll be a little bit lenient.
You could take that away as the learning point. That's great.
Yeah, but obviously if you weren't aware of it, I won't give you 5 minutes, but I'll give you a little bit over. Okay? I'll give you 3.5 minutes because I feel
very generous.
Okay, and that's my discretion, so I can do that.
Thank you,
so whenever you're ready. I'm going to give 3.5 for that one. Yep.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, Committee. As of this evening, as you have heard, 1,751 Hillingdon residents, mainly in Ruislip, have signed the petition to save the orchard. That's not just a number, it's one of the largest planning-related petitions this council has seen in decades, and that shows the strength of local people and about this application in the heart of Ruislip. I want to be clear, I take planning seriously, and I don't particularly like coming to meetings refusing planning applications, and I always try to approach them fairly. But just to show how serious I am, early today I had quite a special day up at Windsor Castle, and instead of being out with my family celebrating, I'm here because the heritage of Ruislip matters more to me than just going off for a quick beer and a buffet. Before I go on, I do want to thank Lidl for being very open, and especially Kevin Davis throughout this process. They've been responsive and willing to answer questions. I don't even think they've given me the right answers or understood it properly, but they have done that. But we're not just protecting a site here, we're protecting a story, and one that reaches far beyond bricks and mortar. The orchard isn't just a building, it was once a refuge and a social haven for Polish airmen, and the pub gave them a community and warmth and a sense of home, and that building is part of the history and is recognised by the memorial and the Spitfire Memorial in the garden. Now, turning to the application itself, the proposal, as you've heard, fails on multiple fronts. I think there's 8 clear reasons. Highways and road safety. I think that anybody who has ever been down near the Five Ways roundabout, according to the plans, the delivery vehicles will be more there than 3 cars waiting queuing behind a bus. They would be overhanging the roundabout itself, potentially causing gridlock, well, it's gridlock already, and creating a dangerous obstruction. Delivery lorries reversing through the car park, that sounds dangerous, sharing the same pace with pedestrians. Delivery vehicles mounting the footway, I think, would be an issue, and the traffic survey was gathered on Friday when traffic patterns were known to be inconsistent due to the remote work and early departures. And there's also an oversupplied car park, not in line with sustainable travel targets of Outer London. I also think the town centre harm will be, I don't believe the applicant has demonstrated that this is an out-of-site centre is appropriate for retail. The town centre first test has not been met, and no proper evidence of that has been put forward. The heritage impact, which I've already talked, we have some fantastic heritage impacts in the local area. The Ruislip Village Conservation, the locally listed Orchard Inn, which is of course now locally listed, and the White Bear. These are irreplaceable heritage assets, and the public benefit outweighs the loss of them. Air quality, the site falls within the Ruislip Air Quality Focus Area, and the proposed development is not air quality neutral, and Lidl does decline to agree to the conditions to mitigate harm. 5, flood risk and drainage. I won't go into that, but the drainage consultation raised specific unresolved concerns, particularly the runoff, loss of biodiversity, urban green failure, and loss of a community asset. I could go on. If this is approved tonight, we won't just lose a former pub, we'll lose a connection of our past. To the Polish airmen who found comfort here, to the green spaces where people reflect and remember, to the story that deserves to be honoured and not flattened. But if we say no, we say that history matters, and that heritage matters, and that local voices matter. And on behalf of the 1,751 residents who made their voices heard, I urge you to support the officer's recommendations to refuse this application.
Well done, you only had 16 today, where you are. Anybody got any questions? You may take your seat. Thank you. I'll then now call Councillor Cawthorne. And you are representing the ward as a councillor. I promise no one is to call him worship, please. Whenever you're ready, 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, and yes, as you say, for the record, just to stress, I'm speaking against this application strictly in my capacity as a ward councillor, having first taken advice from the head of Democratic Services, just to be clear on that. So firstly, I want to compliment the case officer on his report. I think he's done a very good job in highlighting the very many ways in which the proposed development fails from a planning policy perspective, including highways, site heritage, and policy conflict impacts on the existing street scene, residential amenity. I won't go on ad nauseum in 3 minutes, and we've heard it from Councillor Small, it's in your report before you. And of course we know that a planning refusal must be robust to give us the best chance of sustaining a refusal of appeal, should you be minded to refuse this evening. Now, during the last few months, we've met many residents about this proposal, and I personally stood for 3 hours talking to exhibition attendees last autumn, and have met and spoken to many individuals since. Now, of course, 1,700 signatures on a petition, although very remarkable, is not of itself a planning consideration. It's not enough not to like a planning application, if only that were the case. But it does illustrate, I think, the strength of local opinion and the near unanimity of view among local residents in their opposition. I think people are realistic. They understand there cannot be knee-jerk opposition to every single site planning application, or we risk the matter being taken out of our hands by His Majesty's Planning Inspectorate appeal. And whilst whatever the outcome, whatever may eventually come forward may fall short of what we'd ideally like to see, any proposals must be appropriate for the site and properly respect its heritage, something which the application before you this evening manifestly fails to do, in my opinion. I believe from the outset the applicant's project team have shown scant regard for the site's heritage, dumbing down the listed Spitfire Memorial and its significance in its display material in a way which frankly dishonours the Polish airmen and their service. The heritage of the site is something I've been close to for decades. I was actually at school with the son of the gentleman who was responsible for the memorial, the late Peter Burke, and it was raised by public subscription many years ago. Alongside Councillor Smallwood, I would like to thank the many residents who have supported us in our opposition, and also groups linked to the Polish Armed Forces such as 303 Squadron Association. And finally, I know from long experience that one takes the Planning Committee for granted at one's peril. However, I would commend to you the officer report and recommendations and urge you to refuse this application, which really is nothing short of an affront to the community in Ruislip, in my opinion. Thank you very much, Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. My first dentist was a Polish Spitfire pilot, so there you go. Any other questions for Councillor Cawthorne? No? Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Councillor Riley, would you like to come forward?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the committee. I will not repeat what my fellow ward councillors have said, because repetition doesn't do any good whatsoever. But what I will do is to highlight some of the issues. I too have had more engagement with residents perhaps on this issue than almost on any other in my near 18 years as a councillor. The feeling locally is very, very strong indeed. And one of the principal things that was raised with me, which I know isn't a planning consideration, but sometimes things that aren't loom large in the hearts of residents, is that only a matter of a short car journey away, or indeed a bus journey away, is a very large little in Victoria Road in South Ruislip, which people do use. Similarly, there's one opposite us here in Uxbridge. And then, of course, we have the excellent facilities in Ruislip High Street, many shops of a relatively similar nature, providing provisions and other comestibles to the good people of Ruislip and the surrounding areas. So, query, do we really need, as it has been put to me, yet another shop in such a place? And what such a place? I don't know if any of you have tried to get out of Ruislip in the last few weeks and months, but it is very, very difficult, and why would you want to? But it is very, very difficult to get out. That five-way roundabout is a nightmare, and it has been gridlocked for various reasons, but not least of which is actually weight of traffic. And to have lorries and ever more cars coming out of a very small area really just is not acceptable. And I commend the officers for their report and highlighting those areas of objection. But for me, the principal one is highways, because the addition of, but you've only got to look at a little and watch what happens with the constant flow of high volumes of traffic. All of that feeding into that small roundabout, as we call it, the White Bear roundabout, but 5 ways, is just too much. So I support the recommendation. I did object. I was a little surprised not to see my name up on the board, but nevertheless I do object to it, and I wholeheartedly support the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Any questions? No? You may take your seat, sir. Turn the microphone off for me, please. Turn the microphone off. John? Turn the microphone off, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. So, we've had the thing. I'll open to the floor. Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we can see from the numbers that have signed the petition and from the numbers of residents made their own objections, the high level of feeling about this site, and if a little went in there, the objections to it. And we've heard from all 3 ward councillors who've put their case across on behalf of their residents, and they've put it across very well. The officers, in my opinion, have very substantial reasons for refusal, and therefore, based upon that, Mr. Chairman, I would like to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation of refusal on the grounds that have been stated.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burrows. Well, Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chairman. Likewise, as my colleague has stated, officers have done a job where we've got 7 or 8, was it 7 or 8 objections, grounds for refusal. That's a lot. We normally have 2 or 3, which we seem is a lot. I take on board everything that the petitioners have said and the residents have made, but a lot of that, I've got to emphasise, a lot of that is not material planning consideration. And unfortunately, emotionally wise, yes, I live local to it, so I know exactly what situation we will be in, and I agree with it. But officers have done a fantastic job in actually highlighting these issues that we can use should there be an appeal. So I'm very comfortable to second the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Sansapori.
You know, I don't want to go into details, but everything is clear from the officer reports, and we listen to the ward councillor as well, and we are losing too much if we grant this application and gaining nearly nothing. So I recommend, I support the officer recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sansapori. I've been proposed and seconded. Can I show of hands those against agreeing officers' recommendations? That's unanimous. I'd like to say well done to officers. Absolutely very good report. Councillors making the right decision. Residents in Hillingdon love their heritage, and I think we need to make them, any developer needs to be aware of those type of things. Anyway, thank you very much. Those who are here for the petition, you can leave. If you could leave quietly, because we still have an agenda to finish, okay? Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to the next item. Chris.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 7 relates to a full planning application at 42 The Larches. The application is brought before members this evening following a call-in request from a local ward councillor on the basis that the proposed development would cause a harmful impact to neighbouring properties in terms of overshadowing, and the proposed extensions would have an overbearing impact upon adjacent properties. The application proposes the demolition of the outbuilding to the rear and the erection of a double-storey side extension to form a new house with associated bin and cycle stores, and the separation of the rear garden for private amenity space. Here is a location plan. The application site is located within a residential area comprising of mainly 2-storey terraced and semi-detached dwellings. There are some bungalows within the street scene which are located to the east of the site. The site itself comprises of a 2-storey semi-detached dwelling within a generous sized plot and a generous sized garden. Here is the constraints plan. Members will note that the site is not subject to any environmental or development plan constraints. Here is the existing site plan with the site denoted within the red line. Here is the existing block plan. The outbuilding to be demolished is shown at the bottom of the rear garden. This plan shows the extent of the site which would accommodate the building and how it would integrate with the existing dwelling. The eastern flank wall would be located approximately 14 metres from the rear elevation of the number 44, which is to the east. This is considered to be adequate to prevent unacceptable loss of daylight, sunlight and outlook. Here is the proposed plan illustrating the access and parking arrangements to the front. The existing 3-bedroom dwelling would be retained and served by 2 parking spaces. The new 2-bed dwelling would be served by 1 new car parking space. This complies with the London Plan maximum car parking standards. Here is the existing and proposed front elevation. Whilst the side extension, which is to be constructed to form the new dwelling, measures more than half the width of the existing dwelling, it is set down from the main ridge and set back from the existing front elevation, and therefore would appear a subordinate addition. Here are the existing and proposed side elevations. There are no upper floor side-facing windows proposed which could overlook the neighbouring gardens to the east. It should also be noted on the bottom plan, which is the proposed side elevation, that there is an articulation in the brickwork provided on the side elevation to ensure that this flank elevation has some articulation. Here is the other side elevation, very limited change to this. Here are the rear elevations. Here is the proposed ground floor plan. Members will note that a 45-degree angle has been imposed on the drawing to illustrate that the outrigger to the rear would not result in a loss of outlook, daylight or sunlight to the existing dwelling. Here is the first floor plan, which also has that 45-degree line imposed. Here is a proposed site section. This drawing, and a site section again, this drawing indicates a 25-degree line drawn from the rear-facing habitable room windows. This is to demonstrate that the properties to the east would not be subjected to a detrimental loss of outlook or daylight. Members should also note that this plan illustrates a significant separation distance which would be maintained between the existing and proposed dwellings. This prevents the potential terracing effect which DMHB 11 seeks to prevent. The application is supported by a daylight and sunlight report which concludes that the scheme has been designed to ensure that adequate daylight and sunlight levels to the adjacent properties are maintained and therefore conform to the BRE guidance. Here are some indicative visuals. So the existing dwelling itself benefits from a rear garden which also tunnels round to the side. So in effect, the provision of a new dwelling and its garden to the side would be no different in terms of the existing scenario in terms of noise. Here we are, you can see that the proposed two-storey side extension would be set down from the main ridge. It would also be set back from the front in order to appear subordinate. And then we just have an aerial image. This image here shows the separation distances between the existing terraces within the street scene. One of the points that's raised throughout the officer's report regarding the separation distance is that although the two-storey side extension would extend closer to the boundary, it is set adequately off the side boundary. The presence of the gardens to the east do make a significant increase in separation distance above what you see in this photo. So that would prevent the terracing effect, which is what the local plan DMHB 11 and DMHD 1 seek to do. Here you have the existing situation on site. As I've explained, there is an adequate separation distance between number 44 and the existing boundary fence. The new dwelling would be set away from that boundary in order to maintain an adequate separation distance. As a general rule, and anybody that has been here for a long time remembers the old HDAS, that included a guidance of 15 metres between existing and new buildings, and that was because that distance was considered to be adequate to prevent any overshadowing of gardens or neighbouring windows. In comparison with this development, this is broadly 14 metres, so it's just slightly short, but the presence of the daylight and sunlight report and that 25-degree angle plan do demonstrate that there wouldn't be an unacceptable loss of light or overshadowing of the garden. This is just an image of the existing property on the site and another street scene image. So just to summarise, in summary, the proposed two-storey side rear extension would appear subordinate to the existing dwelling. Adequate separation distance in excess of that shown in the street scene images is to be retained and prevent the terracing effect. As such, the development would not give rise to detrimental harm to the character and appearance of the street scene. The development would not result in a detrimental loss of light or outlook also to the adjacent dwellings. Adequate levels of living accommodation, both internally and externally, are provided, and the scheme will provide policy-compliant levels of parking. The application would result in the addition of one new two-bed unit, which is a benefit that weighs in favour of the proposal. Given the development complies with the development plan in the round, The application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, who's going to take me away? Councillor Chimdale.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we've seen a few of these come before us on a similar design where they've actually got refused and overturned by the inspectorate, but because it's now not sort of adjacent to the building line, it's actually back. It does look subordinate to it, so I think the officers made a good point from there, and I'm happy to go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. I think the officer, they covered everything, parking spaces, everything is fine, so I'm second for the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Singh. I just want a quick few things myself. PD rights removed? Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a condition attached to...
Thank you. And obviously there's no parking management scheme in that area?
There is no parking management scheme in that area.
Okay, fine. No. Those are the two things. Okay, so I've been proposed and seconded. Can I show hands those in favour of the officer's recommendation? That's unanimous as well, Ryan. Thank you very much. We move swiftly on to item 9, Colum and Cowley. Is that Owen? Yeah. All right, we'll give you a chance. He's got a microphone, he just needs the computer, I think. There you go. There we go. We get there in the end. Go on.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay? Yep. Yeah. Item 8 relates to the site at 12 to 18 Pileheath Road and 2 Pileheath Avenue. The application site seeks planning permission for the demolition of 4 dwellings and a bed and breakfast and the erection of a part 2-storey, part 3-storey care home with car parking, landscaping and associate works. I would draw members to the addendum, which includes a number of minor alterations post-publication of the report. The application is brought forward to committee, given it's a major development. During the assessment, a consultation process has been undertaken with local residents. A total of 4 representations were received and 1 objection from a ward councillor. The main concerns include the impact on the highway system, the impact on local character, impact on amenity during construction, noise and disturbance, environmental impact and over-concentration of care homes. The consultation responses are covered within section 6 of the committee report within the paragraphs that follow. So I suppose in terms of the location, the site is located on the junction of Pileheath Avenue, where it meets Pileheath Road. The area is largely residential, with a mixture of housing stock. Abutting the north of the site lies 4 Pileheath Avenue, which is a detached bungalow. To the east lies 12 Pileheath Road, a 2-storey detached dwelling, and on the opposite side of the highway is number 20 Pileheath Road and numbers 1 to 7 Pileheath Avenue. There's a mixture of housing tenures and the prevailing character is residential. So there is a bird's eye view of the plan of the site. As you can see, it's on the junction. Pileheath Avenue is on the left-hand side. Down on the bottom is Pileheath Road, where the main entrance to the site will be off Pileheath Avenue on the left-hand side. So here is the existing plans, which will be demolished during the course. It's worth pointing out that there has been planning permission granted in December 2023 for the erection of 60-bed care home over a smaller site. The current application is for a larger care home, which with a large site curtilage, with the expansion of the site to include the demolition of number 12 Pileheath Road along the eastern boundary. This extends the southeastern wing of the building. The elevation drawings that will follow will show you where the actual additional extension is. So these are the existing outbuildings to be removed, and this shows you the site layout of the actual care home. As you can see, it doesn't. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, it's the entrance is up here in the middle. I can't get. Yeah. It's on the left hand side. The entrance is in, and there's a one-way system which exits off Pileheath Road. So Pileheath Avenue is the entrance into the site. The main frontage is off Pileheath Avenue also, with a secondary frontage off Pileheath Road, which is to the south of the site. So this is the site plan, a ground floor. As you can see, there is quite a large-scale landscaping to the rear of the actual care home, and up on the northern boundary near the, I suppose, the residential property at number 4 Pileheath Avenue, and also down on the eastern boundary near the boundary with number 12 Pileheath Road. So here is the floor plans as proposed. At basement level you have ancillary living space associated with the actual care home. On the ground floor you have 31 bedrooms, on the first floor you have 31 bedrooms, and then there's a second floor with 19 bedrooms. Can I just make you aware that the red line is indicated on the roof plan is where the previous permission was granted for. So the additional element to the right of that red line is additional under this new application. And here is a proposed elevation. There is the proposed elevation fronting Pileheath Road. That's southeast facing. And that is, I'll just go back, and again, you can see the red line on the elevation 1 where the original approval was granted. The additional bulk is, or this additional extension is to the right of that red line. On elevation at the bottom is the main entrance. That's onto Pileheath Avenue, and then you have the northwest facing elevation on the top there, which faces onto number 4 Pileheath Avenue. What is key on these elevations is that the extensions along the boundaries of the neighbours goes down to 2 stories. So the large, I suppose, 3-story element is centrally focused within the plot site. And this is just a proposed elevations showing the actual extension, or showing the building in the context of the neighbouring properties. You see an image of number 4 on the top right, and how it actually meets the daylight sunlight testing. So here is a comparison of the actual elevations from the previous approval and the I suppose, the current application on the bottom. Along Piled Heath Avenue, this elevation generally remains the same as can be seen, so there'll be no real changes to this elevation. And here again is the comparison of the approved plan up top and the actual elevation as per the current application on the bottom plan. As you can see, the red line just shows exactly where the approved plan was, and as you can see on both sides, it is stepped in from the boundary with the neighbouring property. And that is the previously approved 60-bed scheme. So this would be the pre-existing buildings on site, and an aerial view of the site in the context of the junction where Piled Heath Road meets Piled Heath Avenue. And here is some pre-existing site photographs, and the current site as is, which is currently implementing the previous scheme. In terms of principle, this has been established with the current approval of the 60-bed care home, which is currently being implemented. The applicant has provided a needs assessment which confirms there is a genuine need for facilities of this nature. This has been reviewed by our policy team, who are satisfied that the principle of the care home is acceptable. It's also covered in paras 7.1 to 7.8 of the report. In terms of design, it has been reviewed by our conservation and design team, who are satisfied with the scale, bulk and massing of the development in the context of the extended plot and the wider street scene. Conditions have also been secured related to materials, landscaping, which would ensure finer detail of the proposal are reviewed prior to commencement of the above ground works. In terms of neighbours' amenity, a daylight sunlight report has been submitted examining the neighbours' windows that adjoin the site, and confirms that each of these windows would meet the BRE daylight sunlight guidance when assessed in terms of loss of daylight and sunlight. The overall layout of the buildings and positioning away from the site boundaries ensures that the building would not cause loss of outlook, sense of enclosure and overlooking concerns. Highways have also been consulted, and the site provides a total of 19 car parking spaces on site. There is also a one-way access system in place which would ensure that the vehicular movement on site would not cause significant friction or disturbance with the site, whilst also minimising the wider impact on the road network. A travel plan has accompanied the application, which promotes sustainable roads of travel with staff members and visitors attending the premises. The highways officer have scrutinised the documentation and the local parking restrictions, and the level of on-site parking is in line with London Plan standards. It's also worth noting there is parking for emergency services, cycle and bin storage is provided. Construction management plan would also be secured via condition. In terms of other issues, we have secured landscaping condition, biodiversity, sustainability, air quality and accessibility conditions. As such, officers recommend approval subject to conditions in Appendix 1 of the report and heads of terms highlighted in the summary section of the recommendation at the start of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen. Thank you very much. Can you just put up the drawing where the bit that we're actually here for approval, which is that the red, I think the first one. We have a councillor present who'd like to speak. Would you like to come forward, councillor? Go ahead. As you're aware, you have 3 minutes. As soon as you press the microphone button to turn it on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the members of the Planning Committee for letting me speak tonight. I'm speaking against this application. I know the committee can only consider material planning matters, so I want to focus on three key policy-based concerns. Firstly, there's the issues of highway and parking. A 33% increase in capacity with no additional parking spaces raises serious concerns. There will clearly be more staff, more visitors and more deliveries with the increase. So much so that even the Council's Transport Officer said on Section 6.1 that there may be instances where off-site parking may take place. This area is already struggling with parking stress, especially with the hospital and a GP practice nearby. Policy DMT6 makes clear that development shouldn't exacerbate existing parking problems or pose risk to highway safety. I believe that if this application is approved, it will do both. And worse yet, with Kilteath Road being a main thoroughfare for ambulances, the impact here could be even more detrimental. Secondly, under policy DMH7, proposals for specialist housing like care homes need to show a demonstrated localised need. Whilst I accept what the officers have said, the original application did that. But I don't really think that a 33% uplift in that need has arrived since then. In fact, there are also two other substantial care homes nearby, such as Parkfield House and Marion House, both under a mile away. Now that's not significant, and it calls into question whether this 33% expansion is actually meeting a 33% increased unmet need within the local vicinity. Not the borough vicinity, the local vicinity. Thirdly, we have to consider the impact on neighbouring properties. Policy DMHB11 says development should protect the living conditions of surrounding residents, but those living nearby have experienced months of dust, noise, blocked access and muddy roads due to construction. This application would prolong that disruption, not to mention what they'll experience as a result of increased visitors and deliveries post-construction. Now, policy DMHB11 is backed up by paragraph 130 of the MPPF, the National Policy Framework, which says that development should secure a high standard of amenity for both existing and future users. Based on the disruption so far and the increased intensity proposed, I don't believe that standard has been or will be met. I recognise that this application has been recommended for approval, but based on these material conditions, I'd urge the whole committee to refuse it, or at the very least, deferring a decision until a site visit can be arranged during operating hours so members can see for themselves the scale and impact of what's already in place. Thank you again for your time and consideration. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Gohill. Does anybody have any questions for the Councillor? Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chairman. You mentioned, thank you, Councillor, for that. You mentioned that the parking arrangements have not increased. But going on to point 7.81, it's stating that there's going to be 19 now car parking arrangements from the previous 9. Is that correct?
My understanding was that was...
Yeah, sorry, go on, Councillor. Sorry, I mean, we can get officers to answer that question if you want. Get it right. Just fine.
Just to clarify on the parking increases, going from 14 to 19, so a 5 increase, with it says in the paragraph, but it's a typo.
Typo. The
ratio remains the same of 0.2 parks per person.
Okay.
Room.
Yeah, that's fine.
If I can just say, my interpretation of the previous application was that there was 18 or 19 within there, and I thought it was still 18. So, apologies if I got confused slightly there. It's still not appropriate on my basis, and having talked to the residents on that road, also still not appropriate.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure we're clear. Okay. Thank you. Can you take your seat? That'd be lovely. Thank you, Councillor Gohill. Right. So I'll open to the floor. Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chairman. I remember this application well. We've been to a site visit for this when it was originally the 60 bed, and we went through it tooth and nail through everything in there. And especially with my concern was how it looked over Bearing in terms of in Peatheath Road. Now with this extra 33% increase, I agree in terms of the congestion that we can have on this road. I know this road very well. And obviously Hillingdon Hospital is nearby. Most of the roads have PMS apart from the one right next to it, which is a concern because an increase of 33% with the potential of extra visitors, even with the additional parking spaces of whatever the figure Katie said, I'm not quite sure, it was 90 or 5, and then additional 5. 33 or over 5 don't fit comfortably with me. But we need to have robust reasons. Should we refuse it and it goes to appeal? We know how it works, been in the situation long enough, and just the one reason on parking just wouldn't be enough. And I know how the residents will feel. I mean, we've had development a bit further down the road for a school, and we have the similar issues with a management scheme on how they're going to deal with the lorries and everything else. It's not adhered to, yeah. And we can't have officers going down there every 8 o'clock in the morning every day to have a look and say, look, let's see your nose. It just isn't adhered to by developers. So, and this being a road which is very, very important to the hospital. And I sympathise fully, because when I go to the residents myself, sometimes it takes an absolute age to get through there, especially with the new. They've got a little takeaway hut built up on the next roundabout next to the hospital. But what I can say, as possibly to the residents, as a small benefit coming on in years to be, when we redevelop Hillingdon Hospital, now we've got money for it, I believe the parking is going to be a lot more better. I believe the way they conditioned it. Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed it does, because at the moment it's difficult, but I don't think that we have enough robust reasons to refuse this, Chairman, and I'll leave it open to everybody else.
Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair. May I ask the officers, have we planting any trees or also any natural electricity like the solar systems over there, because it's quite big development?
We do have a landscaping condition attached to the approval. It includes a replanting scheme. There's also B&G, biodiversity net gain requirements. On review, it does appear to be meeting that criteria. We have also a condition attached to that to ensure that it meets B&G criteria. So generally, in terms of installing more landscaping, we're satisfied that it does meet our criteria.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Wilana.
Thank you, Chairman. After reviewing the information we have in front of us and listening to the ward councillor and having discussed with the residents, I believe that 33% is quite a bigger proportion as an addition to the existing building. I understand 5 additional parking spaces will be provided, but that won't be enough. I quite echo what is being said as an objection, so I cannot support this application.
Thank you, Councillor Wilana. Councillor Burrows. I just must stress to the committee, it's 21 units, right, additional to what it is.
Thanks, Chairman. I just want officers to pick up on the policy points that the ward councillor raised, because I think it's important that officers talk us through each policy point that the councillor has raised to make sure that we have adequately taken each of those policies in view of this application. And also, the council's access officer made comments about the number of disabled spaces that we are going to condition, but unfortunately the officer didn't mention that. Can he just confirm that we are going to put that in as well, please?
Okay, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. Owen, do you want to take this?
Yeah, there definitely is a parking management plan that addresses I suppose condition 18. So it basically requires, prior to any above ground works for development to take place, a parking design and management plan be submitted, and that shows it also requires it includes details of how additional disabled compliant bays will be provided on demand-led basis. On that basis, we feel comfortable that it addresses the accessibility issues. In terms of policy-wise, there is a need for care homes in the borough. The previous application had identified this, and it went from 60, I suppose it's going from 60 care home to an 81, so it's an increase of 21 beds. In general, there is a lack of care facilities in the borough-wide. We have run this by our policy team, who are comfortable that the actual development and the needs identified within the detail submitted meets their criteria, and on that basis they support the application also. Was there any other issues?
Okay, Ros is just going to add to that as well.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to add a further point around parking, because that's obviously been a concern that's been raised a number of times during the discussion. Just wanted to draw attention that obviously we had the previous planning approval, and in assessing this current proposal before us, we've taken a consistent view in terms of looking at parking ratio. So we made a decision, we considered a parking ratio acceptable, and what we're proposing here is to continue the same parking ratio. So if we were now to say that ratio wasn't acceptable, in my mind that would sort of go counter to what the decision we made previously, and that could be questioned then as to whether that was reasonable.
Dr. T, do you want to add anything to it?
Thank you, Chairman. The London plan is silent on car parking standards for care homes, so we've referred to the local plan, and that will allow 0.2 car parking spaces per room. Now, the development as has been approved hits the local plan standard, the maximum standard, can't provide any further number of spaces, as does the revised proposal. The local plan will not allow the development to provide any more car parking spaces, so it's policy compliant. Thank you,
Dr. Tilly. Right, Councillor Mand.
Thank you, Chairman. I think a lot of councillors on the committee have spoken very well, and even the councillors who've spoken against the recommendation have kept their points to the planning point, and put the emotions to the side. But I do concur with what Councillor Chandel said earlier, is that even though there were some material considerations that Councillor Goho put forward, I just don't think it'll be enough for us to be able to support that if there was a subsequent appeal. And in regards to what was just mentioned earlier, in regards to the parking ratio, we've kept the same. It is the same ratio of 0.2. So I think we're going to struggle to find a solid basis to go against Officer's recommendation on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Now I need someone to propose and to second. I'm going to do that. Councillor Burrows.
Chairman, I know that residents, how they feel about this, how a local councillor does, but as it's already been mentioned, we've got nothing within planning policy that would hold up if we were to refuse this. Therefore, I think we do have to accept Officer's recommendation for approval.
Thank you. Councillor Santapuri.
As the officer already explained that we need a care home in the borough as well. So I think it is sensible to accept the officer's recommendation, and I second that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just want to say to the committee and to residents is that, we try to control. If we go against the application, which has already been partly approved, we're in danger of losing a lot of the conditions, and we don't really need that. And it's better to have those conditions to secure. I mean, the greenery is putting planting that actually absorbs pollution, which is really good. They don't have to do that if we don't go through this. So I've been proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hand, those in favour? Those against? Those abstaining? One, so it's one abstention, right? Okay, so that's approved with officer's recommendation. I just would like to say to Councillor Gohill, I've already informed that enforcement will be visiting them to make sure that we're using the wheel washers that we actually conditioned in the first place. So I know it's a small win, but there you go. Sorry. Okay, so on that note, that's the last item of the agenda, so I'm going to bring this meeting to a close. Thank you for those who's watching, and thank you those for attending. Whenever you're ready, Ryan.